Civil unrest erupted in parts of South Africa in the past week or so. The media brought us stories, pictures, and views into our homes. Was this coverage useful, fair, ethical, and balanced? Some community radio stations in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal were destroyed and looted during protests, leaving locals without their trusted sources of information. What is the impact of this on the communities they serve and their right to know? For our game changer, we chat with controversial author and social media activist Jackie Pamotse, who is using her social media platform for good. Hello and welcome to Media and Society on SABC News Channel, independent and impartial. This is where we give you, the viewer, the platform to probe how news is covered and the angles are determined. My name is Rams Mabote and I'm your host. This is the show that is not complete without your say. Connect with us via our social media channels and share your views and concerns about how the media works and how we feed you. Hashtag SABC Media and Society and call us on 011-714-6841, 011-714-6841. Protests erupted in parts of South Africa this past week, dubbed pro-Zuma protests by the media, or at least some of the media. Demonstrations were mainly in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng provinces, and quickly escalated into an orgy of looting and arson that left over 200 people dead, thousands arrested, and businesses and properties destroyed. Has the media framing of these protests been ethical? I'm joined by Associate Professor of Media Studies at the University of Witwatersrand, Glenda Daniels, and Advocate Boitumelo Tlhaku, Commissioner at the Broadcast Complaints Commission of South Africa, known as BCCA to all of us. Good morning to both of you, and thank you very much for joining me on Media and Society.
Good morning, Rams.
Good morning, Mr. Mabote.
Please call me Rams. Let me start with you, Glenda. The framing. Has the framing of the stories that we've seen on our screens been fair and balanced? Has it been one-sided and maybe even leading?
Rams, I haven't even thought of it in terms of framing because I was just highly appreciative of the fact that the media was there first, doing their duty, doing their jobs, giving us the visuals. So I don't think the media had any chance to sit back and think about how do we frame these stories. They just got out there and they were the first on the ground to give the public, and that's who they are there for, to give information to the public. They were first on the ground. They were up late at night. They were dealing with the smoke and the fire, and a lot of them had no protective gear, but they were there and they did give the story. So rather than me talking about framing, we can go into that later. I actually don't think it was in a time of crisis. You have time to stop and think about how you frame things. You go out there, you interview, you do your visuals, and you get your clips out to the public via your media organization.
Shouldn't we, though? Shouldn't we make time to think about how we frame what we offer our public?
When townships are burning and when shops are being looted and when people have been killed, I don't think where you get time for framing is when you sit down to write. Even there, it's difficult. You come into something with your own subjective lens. But I don't think in a case where there's such a crisis, you're going to stop to think, I need to frame from this angle and I need to only interview those people or not interview those people. The most important thing of the whole situation, of the social unrest, of the violence, of the looting, of the anarchy, was to actually show people what was going on.
Advocate Tlhaku, we do mail, as you said, I should call you. When I think of BCCA, and that's me and many other people, is when somebody hears a Rams using a wrong word on air and they complain to you and you come back to deal with it, slap on the wrist for Rams or maybe even a bigger punishment. I'd like to look at what has been happening for the last week. If there's nobody who picks up the phone to call you or who does not send you an email, would you, as the BCCA, having watched what you've seen, decide that you're going to come to the SABC or any other broadcaster and say, we do not think that which you broadcast was ethical or fair?
Rams, if I have to make you understand what the BCC stands for, we don't lodge the complaints. We allow the public to exercise their own discretion based on what is set out and what is broadcasted on the media. How that make them feel, and with the political unrest this whole week, we have so many conflicting and diverse feelings coming from different various society groups, and it is very important that we allow them that space to experience the media for what it is, to find out if, according to them, whatever that they've been fed or they've been looking at from their visuals in their television, or even hearing or interacting with from the television and the radio perspective, it makes them comfortable enough to come to us, or makes them uncomfortable enough to come to us. It is not our policy to go to the SABC or whoever is our licensees to make the complaints ourselves. So we allow the public that space to be reasonable enough to say, I think, based on my view, I'm a bit perplexed with what I saw on the TV.
Fair enough, and I understand that in a situation like this where there's rolling mass action, in a week that's volatile, as Glenda said, there's no time to do anything. Somebody would complain, and by the time it lands on your desk, it's 3 weeks after the protest. Does it serve much help that we could revisit those issues when the images are no longer on my screen?
Funny enough, Rams, we've already received about 24 complaints within this week, which is quite rare. And, naturally with what happened, everyone was kind of perplexed and people were taken aback. This social unrest really affected this country in ways that one would have never actually anticipated. The live broadcast of the raw emotion of the overall society, how it makes them feel, how they got to experience what they call the Zuma protest, which turned into different notions as it progressed through the week. Was very real, and it affected us as South Africa in ways, because we for some reason it had that gloomy environment with it. It had that gloomy effect with it, such that there was no way that people would have waited more than a week or two to actually complain with us.
At this point, let me remind you, the viewer, that please join us and give us a call and tell us how you felt about this news. Did you receive it well? Did you find that the protests were covered fairly and ethically? And the labeling of the protest, was it looting? Was it unrest? Was it free Zuma? Please give us a shout and contact us on social media platforms. We will read your questions and take your calls. Glenda, I sit here and I know, I'm a journalist myself, I know that when we're in the heat of stuff, we're probably not thinking laws, we're probably not thinking prescripts, we're not thinking processes. But there are things that people have raised, and some of them raised them directly with me when they knew we were going to do the show today, like, how is it that it's okay to put a camera on the face of an elderly woman who's just been arrested for theft, whatever you call it?
I'm not sure I understand your question, Rams, but how is it to cover such a thing about somebody being arrested?
Let me rephrase it.
Yes.
What the question is about ethics of putting a face of somebody who's been apprehended, and in this case, an elderly woman apprehended with food in her hand. That's clearly theft, but people are saying, is that ethical? Could we have put a strap on her face or something like that?
Well, possibly. Absolutely. I mean, for me, one could have done that. But as I was saying earlier, I don't see that as unethical. I see the bigger and broader picture of the media as being the only people outside protesters and citizenry and residents who are all dealing with it, who are actually there. With hindsight, one can say a whole lot of things and give a whole lot of criticisms. But my main point was, if it were not for the media who were there with the cameras, South Africans would be a lot poorer for not getting the news as it was, unmediated. So, for me, I take my hats off to the media for actually being there, the first on the ground, and to actually give the South African public exactly what was going on. I mean, they were there before the police. They were there before the president Cyril Ramaphosa said anything a couple of days later. They were there before the commissioner of the police. They were there before the army. All these authority figures came out a couple of days later, and everyone needs to know what's going on in our country. We can't put blinkers on and pretend that poverty doesn't exist, that it may have started as a political spark because of the former president being jailed. It got out of hand, that there are certain political factions and machinations going on. It wasn't just television that's been covering it. We're talking here about TV in the main that were there. But it's also online, it's newspapers, it's radio. They've all done a fantastic job with giving the people the news that happened. As I keep saying, if it were not for them, we would not have known what was going on. So for me, it's hats off to the media. It's just, there's constant criticism and unnecessary hatred of the media when they perform their role in a democracy in a fantastic way. Well, they certainly have in this particular last week of unrest and violence that we saw and we are now analyzing. The media can't automatically, when even the authorities don't know, who are the 12 that are on this WhatsApp group that are under investigation, for instance, for possible treason, maybe. You can't go and speculate about that until you know the facts. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on social media, which is separate from the media, the traditional media. You can't overnight say, this is what happened. It's a multi-layered, multifaceted number of factors that coalesced to give us what happened. And it's the media that's uncovering this through analysis and experts and through interviewing people themselves. And media did a fantastic job by even speaking, on English television in isiZulu, utengisa mama. Gilut, you're not scared. Giatsaba, there's the police, but you're holding me up. Then they would translate into English. I mean, that's almost never been done before, that people, it's that reporters and interviews have actually been speaking to people in the vernacular and then translating. So you're getting the side of the story of the looter, why they're there, why they're doing it. This will go down in history. Actually, the fantastic role the media played in this last week.
I will probe you further on that, Linda, but we're going to have to take a break for now. And when we come back, we take more of your views about how we, the media, have covered the protest of last week. Welcome back to Media and Society. We also look forward to hearing from you on what your thoughts on how the media covered the demonstrations. Engage us via Twitter at SABC_MNS, and you can also call us on 714-6841 on 011 Johannesburg or 6842. We are continuing our discussion with Professor Glenda Daniels from the University of the Witwatersrand and Advocate Boitumelo Tlhakung of the BCCSA. Tumelo, let me come back to you. So there's something that was happening in Phoenix, and it got very violent. Now, one of the things that I know about BCCSA is the warning about gratuitous violence. I got to know the word from you, actually, BCCSA. Now, at which point do we not cover that for fear of not being gratuitous in covering violence?
You see, Rams, what happened within the past week was very abrupt. It was so ad hoc. Nothing was ever planned. And it was very important, as Glenda has previously stated, for the public to see what is happening in different parts of the country. And that included Phoenix. And whatever unfolded in Phoenix needed to be stated, needed to be seen, needed to be discussed, needed to be what people can actually conceptualize into actions versus what is being said. As we say when it comes to the BCCSA, how we treat the live broadcast versus the recorded broadcast will always differ. And simply because this was happening within the news context. And, I kept on wondering why the state of emergency was not yet declared, but it was actually happening within what's supposed to be the state of emergency. So it needed to be covered as raw as it is, so that we all have an appropriate understanding and context as the viewers of what is happening. This is not the time for us as the BCCSA to say there was gratuitous violence. Yes, we call upon our licensees to be very mindful of things like that. However, the circumstances of what happened in the past week were kind of unique. And I'm sure we'll have to go back to the drawing board and discuss the uniqueness of that when it comes to how are we going to adjudicate, because we've already have a lot of, as in this morning, apparently more complaints even came in. So it's more than the 24 that I've already stated to you. So we have to unfold, go back and discuss how do we deal with this, because it needed to be seen. That raw emotion was important for the public to actually absorb and to contextualize, so that we are all in the same understanding of how important or how dire the circumstances in South Africa are.
Great. I hear you. Glenda, I am running out of time, so I'm going to ask you to answer the next question as briefly as you can, even though I know the question is very controversial. So, as you concluded in the first segment, to me you sounded like a great employer who gives people lots of jobs probably has a right to do wrong by them because they're doing well by them. They're giving them a job, they're giving them a salary, so it's okay. So if the media are covering and bringing us information to our rooms, it's okay if they break other rules. Is that what I heard?
No, it's not what you heard. What I'm saying is, when you keep framing it as such that, is it okay if the media do it? Are you proposing then that the media must censor what they're doing, what is actually happening out there? If there's actually violence, are you actually saying that the media mustn't cover it? Is that not the media's job to do it? In terms of what should the media decide, I shouldn't cover that bit of violence in Phoenix, but I should cover the Jabulani Mall that's on fire. So that's not right, and that's not fair, and that's unethical for me. You have to cover and spread out your resources and your reporters to everywhere that's burning. And that's also what I learned as a journalist, and I think that's correct when I was a journalist. You go out there and you put your resources into as many areas. If the citizenry or residents are calling you to say, the Barra Mall is on fire, come now. You go there right now, you cover it, and you interview people. That's the job of the media.
And by the way, my question was not in defense of or suggesting anything. I just ask questions. I don't even suggest whatever. But I do ask all the time that do our rights as reporters, as journalists, do they come with some responsibility? Because that's what the public are always asking. And that's why we have this show, to really try and balance the two, to say we have a duty to perform, but we have to understand that even those we report on have rights.
Absolutely. the duty is to inform, and the duty is to give residents also the right to be interviewed. And my view is that is exactly what was done in the last week. And I just thank goodness right now for the media, for their coverage, for what they did. And there's no ways you could go and protect the rights of the looters, for instance, because people are looting. Now we need to protect the rights of the looters when other people are also going to be losing jobs, their buildings have been burnt down, there has been anarchy. And so you have to just cover what you see as it is and give people the right to switch off their TV if they're sensitive viewers and not watch it as well.
Calling us on 011-714-6841 is Kondile from Mangaung. Good morning, Kondile.
Hi, Rams.
Yes, go ahead.
Rams, I want you to separate broadcasting, from TV point of view and your social media, because in my view, I think social media was weaponized this time around. Because if you look at how things were organized, they were organized so strategically in a way that it will spread all over the country. So I don't know, but I would want the advocate to look at is it Popia on how it's being used, because really if we are not going to handle or use social media responsibly, I foresee problems. For example, other than the social media being weaponized, I'm just interested, Rams, to understand our level of digital literacy, because I feel that there is an element of abuse in that. But lastly, with Professor Ziplenda, you have images that were disturbing during broadcasting. Yes, SABC and other channels, broadcasting channels, did their work, but they were serious images that were disturbing. And for me, I think that in a way there was a bit of a trample when it comes to the ethics themselves.
Thank you very much, Kondile. Let's get to his questions quickly. Witumelo, do you monitor and do you have rights or rather authority over social media, and how difficult is it? Because they're not verifiable sources necessarily of news. They're not news as we know it traditionally.
Rams, we have our licensees, and in this respect, we're talking about the overall TV media and the radio. We do not have any authority whatsoever over the social media. So whatever happens on the social media, and I think we discussed this, previously, ICASA is the one that has to find ways of regulating the social media. However, the BCCA and its licensees exclude the social media. So there are different rules and ways of dealing with social media, but that is not dealt with by the BCCA.
Excellent, Linda. Let's conclude. I suppose Kondile is repeating some of the questions I asked about the ethics of some of the images we've shown.
Yes, so Rams, what I was saying is I did not see any ethical lapses with the media at all, but I'm coming from a particular position of media freedom. And indeed, what has happened in our country in the last week has been traumatic. It has been heartbreaking. It has been disturbing, as the last caller said, but it's not the role of the media to censor that for the readers and the viewers at all, because it is what it is and it is what happened. So as far as I don't see where ethics comes into it. Ethics only comes if you telling one side of the story. I mean, the looters, for instance, had free reign to loot. They put their things in their cars and they took it away, and they came back for more. So they were protected in a way. They were interviewed too. They really had, the media really gave the other side of the story. They gave the side of the story of people who said, we're poor, we're starving, we support Jacob Zuma. They gave a whole range of reasons as to why they were looting. So in terms of ethics, I don't see how ethics comes into it. Somebody needs to explain to me. if the images were traumatic, of course they were traumatic, because of course the most traumatic thing happened in this last week in our democracy ever. I mean, the violence, the shooting, the killing of people, all sorts of things that happened. The police not being there on hand, the authorities coming late to the party, the ANC itself not showing any leadership. So,
okay, Glenda,
I can only take that off to the media.
Sorry to interrupt. I need to take one last call. Sfiso from KwaZulu-Natal. And Sfiso, I'm going to ask you to be very brief and quick.
Okay. No, thank you very much. I'll be very quick. I would like to comment or to say something about the broadcasting. I think in terms of the broadcasting, it was fine, but there was a small portion where we are not that much happy, because in terms of looting and the contribution factors on the unrest, it implies that only the black that were looting, but on the social media we have seen some pictures where the other racial group were also part of the incident of looting. That is where I'm a little bit concerned that it implies that the whites were only protecting their properties, but the blacks were looting. It's only that small portion of broadcasting that I was not happy with. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Fiso. We've asked this question. Let me conclude by asking you this question, Buitume. Is there something that the broadcast media in particular, because you focus on that, could do better as we go forward?
With regard to the past week, I think they did the best that they could within the circumstances. However, when it comes to the issue of bias, we always urge our licensees to be very objective, because we're living in a democratic country. We are not here to sugarcoat issues. We are here to state facts as they are. For instance, last week was mostly based on live broadcast. Live broadcast, it means then when we broadcast, we're not going to go back to the drawing board and say, we're only going to opt for this one and take out this one. We don't edit at that circumstances. That's why we say, as the Broadcasting Complaints Commission, even with the complaints that came in for the past week, we're going to have to look at them differently, because everything was all of a sudden, it was a bit of abrupt kind of interventions. So with that abrupt intervention, we also expect everything to have come up the way that it was, without having been edited, with the disadvantage in other racial groups, instead of the others. We just want an element of objectivity, and we want, as much as we are expecting to adjudicate over the raw emotion, over the raw reality of South Africa, we want that raw reality to be complete.
Speaking of objectivity,
the editorial rights, will always depend on the broadcasters, but it would be nice and it would be a bit, kind of reliable if whatever is broadcasted is completion of everything that came out.
Speaking of objectivity, one of the enemies of objectivity is time and space, and we have run out of time. Thank you very much to Associate Professor of Media Studies at the University of Witwatersrand, Glenda Daniels, and Advocate Buitumelo Taku, Commissioner at the BCCA. Besides business and government property, an unusual victim of the protest was the community radio stations in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. Alex FM, Mamelodi FM, Westside FM in Gauteng, as well as Intokozo FM in KwaZulu-Natal were attacked and looted, suffering damage worth hundreds of thousands of rand. But the biggest loss was the right to information for the audience of these stations. Thousands of listeners have been left desperate without their sources of information and news and entertainment. For more on this, I'm pleased to be joined by Alex FM station manager Takalani Nemangowe, Zuvugile Kashe from Media Development Agency, and Lindiwe Mahlangu, a listener of Alex FM. Let me start with you, Takalani. It had to be the most horrid thing to wake up to the news that you are off air, not by choice.
Well, morning to you, Rams, and also the viewers of SABC and Media and Society. Yes, of course, it was a very devastating, period for us to get to the station that has been there for the past 27 years, only to find that everything that we've accumulated in the period of 27 years just vanished in a split of a second. It was very, very, very sad.
And yes, you lost archives of 27 years, you've lost work of 27 years, you've lost time to broadcast. But I'm sure more importantly, what you would have lost is the opportunity to even cover what was happening at the time, because all of us had the opportunity. I've been talking to my previous guests, the print media is covering this thing. You were denied that chance to cover what was happening at the time.
Right at our doorstep, one of the roles of community media is to obviously, cover local content. So we were denied that opportunity by the unfortunate circumstances that we were faced with, because when this unrest started, we were on the ground, we were covering each and every corner or whatever that was happening in our community. But unfortunately, Tuesday morning, when we were hit by this, so we were denied. In fact, our community was denied, access to information in terms of the content that we're supposed to be sharing with them.
It has to hurt even more, Takalani, for me, that you get to be looted by your own stakeholder. Yes, there's a criminal element, there is no doubt about it, but you serve this community. You would think the one thing they want to protect is their own.
Well, it is very sad because, as a community radio stations, we belong to the communities, and we believe that it's the very same communities that must protect and shield their stations, because we are there to serve them. So it is very unfortunate that the very same communities would be the very same people who will come and steal from themselves. We know and we understand that there were criminal elements that were attached to this. These protesters who were masquerading as protesters, they were not protesting, but they just took advantage of the situation and then looted the station that belonged to them. Today, when we are saying the voice, the community of Alexandra does not have a voice, simply because they took their own voice from themselves.
Mzuvugile Kashe, let me bring you in here. Now, I'm going to start with, being personal. I started my broadcasting experience on a community radio station in 1993, and I know the value of what community media does. I know that it's also a breeding ground for how I end up here, is because I would have started somewhere there. Beyond just being entertainment and fun, and beyond them knocking on your door every day and asking for more resources, do we understand the value of community media?
Good morning, Rams, and to your viewers. I think I think people only understand one dimension to the community media aspect. But it runs deeper than that, Rams. When you talk about the community radio stations that you had mentioned earlier, there are jobs in community radio stations. People are employed there. There is also an education and development aspect where you have, trainee journalists and students who are advancing their careers through the station. And as you have said, most of these journalists, they fit into the mainstream media. You've got businesses that supply to the same stations. They would have lost as well. You equally have companies utilizing this platform to promote and advance their businesses. So of course, this then has also an economic element to it as well. Thanks, Ren.
The meaning of this kind of attack on these 4 stations, and I'm sure we're not even covering all of them. There could have also been community newspapers being attacked. The meaning of this to the audience from an MDDA point of view, what does it mean to us, the audience that consume this media. I still get my knock and drop newspaper every week where I live. And yes, I do listen to Soweto FM, being a child of Soweto, Josie FM, coming from Soweto. What is the impact when I get to lose this?
Well, yes. So the impact, as I had said, is quite extensive. It's really quite extensive. But I think at the main, it's also about the termination of the information supply to communities. I think RAM as a country, we fought very hard for access to information. And I think now we appreciate, the developmental element of information. We all know that information enables, informed decision-making. You need to be aware of what's happening around us, what are the economic and cultural and social trends. So this, in fact, has disempowered the communities that have been affected by this.
Now I'm done with the emotive stuff. Let's get to the hard stuff. Mzu, how much does it cost to set up a community station? Ballpark figure.
I have to say, the costs are quite exorbitant, let me be honest. But I think, as you said, it's not only Alex FM that was affected. You have Mams FM, community of Mamelodi. You've got Catharas, which is community of Katlehong and Fosloras, Indogozo from Mlazi, amongst others. The damage obviously differs. Others were equipment, others it was infrastructure, others were furniture. But the damage, Rams, is not only of monetary value, but think of the social investment as well. People broke their backs in developing and maintaining the stations. They're just the community mobilization, the advertiser confidence, maintaining a listenership is a concerted effort. So the costs are not easily quantifiable, and I don't want us to perhaps only reduce it to the monetary value.
I'll still come back to you there because I want a different monetary value. But let's speak to Lindiwe Mahlangu, who's a listener of Alex FM. Sawubona Lindiwe.
Yebo sawubona.
Uzizwa kanjani mawuvuka nje that morning uzwe ukuthi awusakwazi ukulalela radio yakho as you always do?
Hey, basiphula umoya man labantu ngazizwa kabuhlungu kakhulu. Basiphula umoya. Ngoba ukuthi nani nje bengifuna kuba umuntu ongaphakathi ukuthi sihambe sifuna lezi zinto lezi esimoshile emphakathini ngano iLSFM isinceda kakhulu ngoba sonke sikwazi ukuthi endaweni ethize kwenzakalana endaweni ethize kwenzakalana sokumosha imisebenzi yabantu siphukekile kakhulu emoyeni.
So wena njengolindiwe and uTakalani gets a chance to hear this live. Yindaba ulaleli Alex FM ikwenzelani wena njengolindiwe?
Wow, kuningi okungenzela kona ku Alex FM because of njengoba ngiqeda ukuthi ukhona ukwazi ukuthi noma ufuna ukuya endaweni ethize wazi ukuthi ngaphambili kunani. Ukhona ukwazi ukuthi ezindabeni ulalele yonke into nje enzakalayo phakathi emphakathini wethu la ngihlala khona. Ngazi ukuthi ngisave kangakanani ngikho save kangakanani.
Uzwenze njani manje?
Angiphathekanga kahle ukuthi bazodimulisha kwi-electricity because of ngendlela benze ngakhona angiboni ukuthi bona laba khona ba right na ngoba akusiyinto engathi awucabangeki ucabanga kanjani nje mawuzodemulisha into owazi ukuthi izonceda wena nawe ngakwakho.
In short, what Lindiwe speaks about is the value of some things that we take for granted, those of us who consume mainstream and broader media, is the day-to-day life of your own community, the stuff that you get to know tomorrow about what bus is no longer moving, what stores are closed, what activities happening around the corner, even what dangers to avoid. She has been denied that opportunity to know that when one morning a group of us decided to destroy Alex FM. Takalani, we have learned that some organizations, including a media organization, Prime Media, have made offers to help you recover. How much do you really need, and who else must come in to help you to come back on air? In fact, are you back on air?
Well, thank you very much. Fortunately enough, we are back on air. We are currently broadcasting in Sandton, Rivonia at LM Radio Studios. They were, good to us to house us so that we cannot allow to be off air for some time. So we are currently on air. broadcasting from Sandton, we continue to serve the community of the Greater Alexandra with our local content that we've been doing. So there are, good Samaritans from all walks of life, from media, even ordinary citizens who are coming through to assist the station, because we just launched a campaign called Rebuild Alex FM, because we really want to rebuild this community asset to continue to do the work that we've been doing for the community. So with our immediate assessment that we have already done, I think we lost equipment to the value of 5 million rand. And then it will take us some time to obviously recoup the kind of equipment that we had. Like I said earlier on, it took us 27 years to have the state of facility that we had. So currently we're still appealing to everyone to please assist the community of Alexandra. I'm speaking on behalf of the community of Alexandra to say please assist us so that we can get the station back on its feet, so that we can continue to serve the community, because community media plays a very important role in society. So we cannot deny the people of Alexandra a voice. We cannot deny the people of Alexandra a platform to engage and also seek a solution to their challenges. Or also, we cannot deny the community of the Greater Alexandra an opportunity to use a platform like Alex FM to hold the executive to account, because it's platforms like Alex FM where issues of service delivery are being discussed, where job opportunities are being announced.
And for that, we really are grateful for what you do at Alex FM and all the other community media. Mzu, I still want to, in one line, to answer this question. To set up, if I started tomorrow and I wanted to set up Dobsonville FM, which is where I come from, how much would it cost me? Because I want people to understand how much is being wasted in one act. Okay,
well, Rams, let's just start by the broadcast equipment. If for you to set up, you would need perhaps an on-air equipment, and then this ranges, of course, from anything from 700 to about 900,000. And obviously, for you to function efficiently, you would want to have both. You would want to have 2 studios, because the other one is for you to produce content, and the other one would be for on air. So if you're looking at those, you're looking anything about 2 million. That's just an initial start. And obviously there are other elements.
I'm answered. I wanted that figure.
Oh, okay,
I wanted that figure. I want people to understand it. Let's take a call. We got Carl calling us from Richards Bay. Good morning, Carl.
Good morning, and good morning to everybody else. Thank you for the time. I just wanted to comment on the issue of the looting that took place with the community radio station. I wanted to state that the community, the radio stations were looted. They wanted the equipment. It was not an act of separation from the society that or the community that owns that. That's the first observation. Secondly, the role of community media in making sure that communities did not get involved in the looting is evident in most of the areas in KZN where such activations were taking place. So the role of community media is and needs to be amplified. I'm happy the MDDA is there, and I pray that there will be a direct intervention for Ntokozo FM and Alex FM, direct intervention, so that we can remedy we can actually remedy what
Carl,
has taken place.
Thank you very much. Amazing input. Actually, I agree with everything you've said. Thank you very much to Alex FM station manager Takalani Nemangowe and Mzuvukile Kashe from MDDA. Also, thank you very much to the listeners that have called us, and in particular Lindiwe from Alex FM. We're not going to take an end break, so we're going to go to another story that, for me, is what makes this show. So we deal with a lot of negative things. We deal with a lot of hard stuff. And every week we try to look at something that warms our hearts up. And for me, to get those people onto this show who are doing amazing stuff through the media is a very important thing. So we've got a feature called Game Changer, but it's going to come later. So we're going to check on social media and what we've been hearing from you. P. Shooter says media must stop sugarcoating truths. They are supposed to show the public as it happens, not what they think we should see. Mangim Zuli says, what stood out for me was the difference in reporting between the mainstream media and social media through the lens of obvious spots. I think mainstream media did extremely well. Thank you very much for those. And that's my point. How do we deal with bots? I mean, how do we expect us to verify people that are not verifiable? It is very difficult. It is easy to verify what I'm doing here. You know it's happening at SABC. You know you can go through channels. But when a bot posts stuff, we've got a problem. So the game changer is a feature that zooms into how young people, maybe all people, are positively impacting society through their field of play. And today we zoom into author Jackie Mabote, who has been encouraging the youth to keep their studies through this trying time, with projections indicating that between March 2020 and June 2021, most primary school learners in South Africa lost 70 to 100% of learning relative to 2019 cohort. That's huge. This data comes from the National Income Dynamics Coronavirus Rapid Mobile Survey. Jackie, you could have sat at home and written another controversial book and exposed what I did last night, but you chose to do something exciting. Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm dark and lovely, thank you for asking. Why? What happened? Why did you think about this?
Well, you know, I work with a lot of universities, in particular the University of Johannesburg and UNISA. And it is so important for us to remember the students in this time. As much as we can say people are home, people are at liberty to study at home, but things have changed. And it's so unfortunate that now we're experiencing a lot of unstable homes. And we need students to remember that at the end of the day, education is still one of those things that's really, really primarily very important. And finishing exams and completing portfolios or writing assignments still needs to be a priority. As much as we can say, yes, there's looting, we agree. But what can we do as citizens and activists to help students complete their seasons of school?
The community that you engage, are these people who follow you on Instagram, or is it you started something and new people came in? What numbers are we talking about here?
I literally have over 200,000 followers on Instagram alone, and majority of them are students. And some people, it's just people who want to engage me as a writer. But I see that because of what's happening, I'm getting an increase of followers because people want to know what can they do for school while they're home. What are the institutions saying? So I've literally become a vessel between the institutions, young people on the ground, and young people in certain school environments.
And well done to you, Jackie.
I started the lives to engage students to see where their heads are in terms of education at this current time.
Well done to you. You are our game changer of the week, Jackie Mabote. Okay. Truly appreciate it. Please go to her social media platforms and check what she's doing in this mist of gloom.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so important that we remember that education is still the key. And while we still have this time to be home,
I have to go, Jackie. I'm out of time.
Cheers. Have a good day.
Thank you for watching our show, Media and Society. My name is Rams Mabote. Good day and God bless.